Following show may shock, disturb, and offend some viewers. The opinions, theories, and facts shared on this podcast are not widely accepted by the brainwashed masses, especially those who find dark humor offensive. Viewer discretion is advised.
Jeffrey Dahmer soaked in blood. The Unabomber blowing up. Waco, Texas, and Heaven's Gates. Aliens modified, meant for apes. JFK shot in the head by the CIA. Bigfoot and the Mothman. Son of Sam talking to dogs again. Witches, ghosts, and goblins. Mysterious noise and hauntings. Dark arts in the skull and bones. Most celebrities are probably cloned. So if you're feeling all alone, crack a beer and get stoned. I welcome you to the podcast Strange Brew. We're here to entertain you. We're here to entertain you.
It's about to get strange.
Welcome, everybody, back to the show. Welcome back to the show. I am your host, Tomcat, a.k.a. Tom Thompson, the Raptilian, and we have a special guest for this episode. Sir, would you like to introduce yourself?
My name's Daniel Tyrie, and I'm the chairman and founder of the Dominion Society.
Yes. So if people aren't aware, I'm sure the fans of the show will kind of be aware of the content that you've been pushing out and stuff like that. We're kind of in the same circle of people. Like I've always actually want to talk to Greg Wyclef too. I've always liked his videos he's been doing it for a couple of years now. And you kind of popped on the scene. I feel like it seemed like out of nowhere because I was doing this stuff like for a while, and I started seeing your videos, and they're professionally done, really to the point. People that know me, like I'm a little more aggressive and stuff like that, and I just feel like it is good to have people like you that are just professional in the way that they speak and do things, so it can convey a message to everybody, not just like where I kind of trigger people.
I appreciate that, Tom. Yeah, I've been involved in nationalist politics for a long time. Before I launched the Dominion Society, I've been working behind the scenes for the People's Party of Canada for about 5 years. So I have been involved in and around the scene, just not as much as a public figure. We launched the Dominion Society earlier this summer in July, and like just as you put it, our big goal is to really professionalize the nationalist movement and create a larger organization and like a coherent kind of volunteer structure to kind of take Canadian nationalism to the next level and to bring it effectively to the masses in a way that can appeal to people. Because I think we have an important message. I think we have a popular message. And I think there needs to be more done to effectively kind of organize politically. So that's what we're here to do through the Dominion Society.
How old are you?
I'm 29 right now.
Okay. So we're not far. I actually thought you were a little younger. I'm actually turning 34 this Saturday. So we're not far off. I actually thought you were a little younger. So I was always interested. Like, I started seeing your videos, and then I think I saw you on Zach's show first, the Schmidt House podcast, and he, I think, was like, yo, you should have Daniel on the show. And then it was like months and months later, and then I was like, I finally reached out to you guys to kind of get you on the show. But what got you like interested in this? Because I was always interested in politics, but even when I've had like Jeremy McKenzie on or Derek, we've talked about this, where I'm like, I never aligned with either side, right or left, my entire life. I've been aware of kind of this stuff since I was very young, that the whole government structure is pretty corrupt, and I don't think necessarily anyone represents us to the extent of, especially the political right and left that we get the choice from. Like the PPC is a little different in the way Maxime Bernier openly spoke out and did things, right? But what got you into politics and especially nationalism?
Yeah, no, I'd been interested in politics from a very young age. That being said, I did come up very left-wing, very liberal. I would say I kind of started going through that kind of red pill journey through 2016 with the rise of Donald Trump, and then the whole Jordan Peterson story of it all. And that's how I started kind of waking up to things. That's when I was going through university. I was studying political science and economics at the University of Waterloo. I started in 2015 or 2014. So I was in school in this very political environment through the kind of Trump era. And that's what started kind of waking me up to this kind of to the more kind of nationalist globalist divide rather than the kind of left-right divide. And at the same time, this is really how I started waking up to the issue of immigration, which is something I think Donald Trump really popularized. And at the same time, I was going through university, and I felt like every political topic that we were studying all kind of tracked back to immigration, whether or not we were talking about issues of our healthcare system or our education system or the housing crisis. Every single thing I kept noticing was tracked back to immigration. And yet at the exact same time, while the Americans were having these important discussions about immigration reform, in Canada, the numbers were just going up and up and up and up and up. And at the same time, all these issues were getting worse and worse and worse and worse. So I really kind of latched on to immigration as a major issue. I got into it from more of the economic side of things, but I started to get more and more interested in the kind of social, cultural side of things as well. And that's what kind of drove me into politics. So I graduated in 2018. This was, shortly after Bernier got kind of screwed out of the CPC leadership race, shortly before he launched the People's Party of Canada. And when he did that, I saw a big opportunity for young guys like myself to kind of cut through the kind of boomer rot in the CPC and really get involved in a political party in a way that we could be actually influential. So I got involved in the early days of the PPC. Myself, as well as a lot of the early supporters, saw it as a sort of potential nationalist political party. I don't think it really panned out as that, unfortunately.
It's too bad. During COVID, I saw the rise of that. Like, I went to a lot of the protests in Toronto. Like, I couldn't make it to Ottawa. I would like to. I had buddies that went cook for the truckers. But I went to at least 4 times to the Toronto. Like, there was tons of us, thousands of us. And I have videos of me from back then. And it's interesting because a lot of the people were wearing like the People's Party of Canada shirts. And I feel like there was this big push to try to shift in that direction. And it's just sad how people get kind of caught up in politics. Because when I do videos, and I've done these videos, maybe criticizing the Conservative Party, people would be like, oh, you love Trudeau and liberals back when Trudeau was in power. And I'm like, I literally created a song called Fuck Trudeau that went viral. And I'm like, I don't like the liberals, right? Mm-hmm. So it's interesting how politics has captured people such in a way that they can't discern between like fact and fiction. They just are like, this is my side. You see with Antifa and stuff like that. It's like, this is my side. I will literally kill someone for the side that they've been kind of conditioned to be a part of, right?
Yeah, I find that as well. People jump on all sorts of conclusions. It even happens with the PPC. I don't really support any political party at the moment.
Yeah.
I'm looking to kind of influence all of them. But you criticize the liberals, they call you a conservative. You criticize the conservatives, they call you a liberal or a PPC supporter. Like, people just kind of jump into things and assume things. But politics is more important than that, and that's kind of why I started the Dominion Society, because political involvement's more complicated than just voting for a political party and or talking about a political party online. And we see this on the left. Like, the left has this whole network of charities and NGOs and think tanks that supports and promotes their worldview, whereas the right doesn't have this sort of institutional framework in the same way. There are a few big kind of not-for-profit think tank type organizations like Strong and Free and the Fraser Institute and the Macdonald Laurier Institute, but they're all very like economic focused, very, very libertarian. Maybe some are focused on like promotion of oil and gas and some of these things. But none are really focused on like real kind of cultural perspectives. So that's what we're very focused on. We're kind of a single issue advocacy group focused on immigration, specifically promoting the concept of remigration, while putting forward a more positive vision on Canadian identity. And we want to bring people kind of into the political process and teach them these political skills, be it kind of communications, social media, door knocking, leafleting, like all these crucial kind of political skills. But we want to use it to promote our kind of worldview and instead of ideas in order to create a cultural change. And we believe that downstream from culture is politics. So we believe that through kind of transforming the political conversation above the political level, we can influence the direction of all mainstream political parties.
And that's the kind of what we need to gear towards. I just had a question, guys. Like, was the university kind of like leftist? Did you find that there was more leftist policies and ideologies? Because I work in I'm in the trades and stuff, and I work with some young kids. And the stuff that I hear that they're talking about in like being pushed in high school is pretty absurd. I told a kid at work today that they're having to do a whole English lesson thing, like a whole thing about like Native history. And I'm like, are they teaching in Canadian history? He's like, no. And I'm like, I told him, I was like, I'll debate your teacher if you want. I was like, tell your teacher I will debate them. Because I actually, it's off topic a little bit, but I actually believe that, and I've been doing research for a show to do this, is that Europeans were here before natives were. There's European carving tools along with many other evidences that they were like essentially prehistoric Europeans were on this side of the world before like the Siberian tribes. But like off topic, but what was the university like?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of passive leftism in university. It's generally the cultural zeitgeist, I'd say, and I mean, even in the public education system, you have these, like, it's very normal to have these kind of postmodernist concepts of Canadian history that are taught. Even the focus, like when I was going through high school, we didn't learn any Canadian history. It was all focused on your World War II and stuff like this. That
crazy.
Canada played a role in, but
yeah.
There's so much more interesting Canadian history to how this country was founded and settled that I think could be taught in high school and throughout the education system, which is not. I wouldn't say most of my profs were hyper partisan, as has been some people's experiences. But they're definitely the overall currents are definitely very liberal, and I think that's kind of the global political conversation. It's generally imbalanced. I don't think we've had a strong kind of nationalist or illiberal kind of perspective on politics across the Western world, really since World War II. And I think there's a new kind of a divide that's been brewing across the world, and it's really comes down to this kind of nationalist globalist divide, which I don't think maps onto the typical kind of left-right spectrum that people are used to very well anymore.
Well, the Marxist ideologies have ramped up, especially. I think they've always inserted themselves for a long time. The term multiculturalism was coined by Pierre Elliott Trudeau. He essentially coined that term. I've researched it. It's interesting. He was one of the first people to really speak about this idea of multiculturalism, and he's the one that signed us on to the replacement migration, essentially, but the Immigration Act, which essentially, as far as I've researched, before the 1970s, you had to be pretty much European to come into Canada.
Yeah, I mean, it started before Pierre Trudeau. It started with John Diefenbaker and Lester Pearson. Our immigration system has been slowly liberalizing since about 1963. But Pierre Trudeau is definitely the one that normalized multiculturalism. I don't think he was the one that coined the term. It was popularized by academics like William Kimlicka and pushed forward by organized kind of Ukrainian and Jewish groups. But it was definitely entrenched into law by Pierre Trudeau, who introduced the Multiculturalism Act that was ultimately made law by Brian Mulroney, a so-called conservative prime minister.
Yeah. Well, that's what I found with conservatives with Diefenbaker. Like my wife's father is a staunch conservative, right? And he like loves Diefenbaker because I feel like they were kind of conditioned to believe that he was a champion of that side when not necessarily he actually was.
Yeah, he did a lot to liberalize our society. Is the reality? He started liberalizing our immigration system. He put forward the Canadian Bill of Rights, which was the precursor to the Charter, which again was a very kind of liberal American concept. But Diefenbaker is an interesting character. That being said, like he was an amazing orator. He did speak passionately on kind of Canadian nationalism. He defended the Red Ensign. There was good things about John Diefenbaker, don't get me wrong, but he really was the death of Canadian nationalism. He represented what could have been a massive pivot. Over the preceding kind of 20 years, we were seeing increasing entanglement with the United States. Our culture and our economy were becoming more and more integrated with the Americans. And he represented an opportunity to chart a different path. And ultimately, he failed to do so, despite having a massive government government mandate. He
Yeah.
he had the biggest mandate of all time. I think Brian Mulroney beat him out for seats, but he still has the biggest percent of the popular vote ever won by any Canadian politician. So he had the huge public support, but he wasn't able to work through the kind of institutional disadvantages and the CIA and stuff looking to push him out in favor of a more pro-American Lester B. Pearson ultimately after the Beaumont missile crisis.
I always have a bunch of books on the go, and I started reading Lament for a Nation, and he was very much talking about Diefenbaker and kind of his ideologies, and it's interesting because this, like, I was always, a lot of Canadians, grown up in, like, I grew up in the 90s, and my family was like from Toronto, and then we moved to St. Catharines into a smaller town and stuff like that, which probably helped me kind of come to these realizations to some extent. But, it was always kind of pushed on us. This is the way Canada was. They didn't teach us about our history. And it really wasn't until I started to notice this huge shift in our immigration, especially in the last couple of years, that really pushed me. And then getting essentially like having connections with like Jeremy McKenzie and start talking with him, and he's the one that really kind of woke me up to this idea of nationalism and who we are. And then I started my own research, right? And I traced what my mom's grandma back to 1604 in Canada, and before that I traced it back to what now is the United States, and then it stopped. So I have no idea how long my bloodline goes back to in this nation and stuff like that, or in this like hemisphere. And that's what made me be like, and really push to this is our people, this is our country. My ancestors didn't endure everything they did to just give it away to foreigners. And that's like the biggest problem, right? And I believe it's all part of a bigger agenda, but it's like to essentially it seems like to erase us in the process of like uplifting everybody else. So what really made you like kind of turn that switch on to be like, we need to preserve our people, our way of life, our heritage, something that they never teach anybody about, whether it even be in school or your parents or social media. A lot of people have been conditioned to be like, well, this is the way it is. It's always been multiculturalist, which isn't true.
Yeah, I mean, as I mentioned, I kind of came into the immigration question from a economic perspective. It was all these kind of policies that were adversely affecting our society. But at the same time, like I started to notice how our country was transforming. And our cities are starting to look different, and it's affecting social cohesion. As I was going through, I grew up in Toronto as well. Pardon?
Are you in Ontario?
Yeah, I live in Ottawa right now. But I grew up in Ontario, and I grew up in Toronto, rather downtown Toronto. Like I went to a high school that was minority white, 40% white.
My cousin too. My cousin lives out there, and he's in Weston, and he's like, I was like one of the white guys. He was like, there was a handful of us, and that was it, man.
Yeah. That was kind of my educational experience. Like at the same time as Canada's demographics were changing, I just kind of found myself on a course that went kind of deeper and deeper into things. Like I went to I lived in an area that was very still very white, maybe a bit Jewish, but mostly white. And then when I went to high school after, I went more deeper downtown on the Danforth. And my school experience, again, the demographics shifted. And then I went to university in Waterloo, where there's a massive international student population, a lot of Chinese people, a lot of Indian people. Yeah, exactly. So, and then this is even more jarring, right? Like it's not even like people that were born here. It's like literally kind of fresh off the boat international students. And these cultural divides just become more and more stark. You have like the Asian kids in the Chinese kids in their their brand new Bentleys and BMWs who can hardly follow the rules of the road. Like there's intense kind of divides that are being drawn, and then at the same time, like I just started noticing how people kind of arrange themselves naturally in both high school and university. Like it's just people of the same ethnic backgrounds forming friend groups, and like sure you can call this like racist or something, but it's just how people naturally organize.
I think it's to realize.
Pardon?
It's instinctual.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's
You look like me. Oh, we should hang. You know what I mean? That's where it comes from.
but it's not even just you look like me. It's like we have similar kind of
Yeah.
life stories. We have similar attitudes about things because there are similar cultural experiences, and even amongst kids that were born here, and so on, they come from different backgrounds. Like I went to in high school, we'd have a class that was 20 foreigners, 10 people from the India or the Southeast or South Asian in general. And everyone would form kind of along ethnic lines, whether they realize it or not. And then we'd have polite discussions in English, but then they'd go off into their other friend groups and start speaking foreign languages. The reality is this causes tension in society.
It does.
And I started to recognize more of Canadian history and Canadian identity and how these things like are inextricably linked. And I started to realize how only Western countries have this kind of idea where their national identity is viewed as a civic identity, and while like anyone from anywhere can be Canadian, but like I would never be able to become Indian, I would never be able to become Japanese, but like anyone can be Canadian through paper. Like I started to realize that these ideas don't really make sense. And that our identity and our culture need to be defended, or else they're just going to fall away. And it's only become more and more apparent over the last few years. We can see areas of the country like Surrey and Brampton; they're changing completely. You spend time there, and it's more like you're in a foreign country. People speaking foreign languages, signs for restaurants and businesses in foreign languages. Statues and monuments going up to foreign religions.
Me off. I hope that my children tear down those statues. I'm not gonna lie. I think they should be taken down. And that's the problem, is they create ethnic enclaves of their own people and then prioritize their own people. And then if white people do it, they're racist. And one of my co-hosts is in Ireland. It's happening worldwide, only to white countries. And I believe that, we've covered the Kalergi plan. We're going to do it again. There is certain aspects of this thing that has been written about for like 100 years. I think that this has all been in the works. The UN agenda, the UN migration. It's literally a document that they have that
replacement migration. And
it's funny.
Compact on migration.
Yeah, I grew up with Native friends, Black friends, Indians. I didn't have any contact with really. My parents in Toronto, they had good friends. I didn't even see, because they were some people that assimilated, right? And they were close with our family. I never knew them really because it's after I started growing up or whatever. But like I never looked at it until I started to realize, there is such a push for like kind of an anti-white agenda, in my opinion, and against us as people. And we're not allowed to collectivize. And if it's interesting, because if white people say, okay, well, I only want to live around white people, that's racist. But then you literally, especially in America, they create like black only schools, black only communities, black only this, that. And in my opinion too, like I know that the chiefs steal a lot of the money, but like I don't call them reserves. I call them ethno-states. The natives have their own ethno-states within Canada. That's what they are. They're their own people, represented by their own people. And I'd like to get your take on this. One thing I've always kind of wanted to ask you is like one thing that I really got more like pissed about and like trying to push back on this is this idea of especially foreigners would say this, and some like brainwashed liberals amongst other people, maybe even natives, that they would be like, well, you're not the true Canadians because natives are, or whatever. And then so I started really pushing back on this and doing research and looking into this. And I'm like, well, Canada wasn't created by the indigenous, the Siberian tribes. They weren't. It was created by white Europeans. Even that I saw you do that video about the railways, because I did a video prior to you doing it, and I did it because like I kept seeing all these people being like, well, the Chinese built every time I said like Canada was built by white Europeans, they'd be like, the Chinese built and I was like, no, they didn't. They built a tiny fraction of it in like BC in the mountains. And it's so funny that you see these similar talking points. And I just want to know your opinion of like this idea of like all these people being, well, natives are the true Canadians and stuff like that. And they would usually identify with the tribe they're associated with, right? So
yeah, no, I think you put it well. I had a kind of viral tweet on this concept where I said, if anything, white Canadians are the real Canadians, and the First Nations people aren't Canadian. Mm-hmm. Now, generally, I would include everyone in this description. I believe these three leaves on this flag represent the three founding peoples of Canada: the French, the English, and the and the First Nations people. I think First Nations played an important role in European settlement of Canada. But that being said, as you put it, most of them will identify with their own tribe or clan ahead of being Canadian. The reality is they have a distinct ethnicity than Canadians, and that this country didn't exist before Europeans came here and built it. Yes, we've taken names from indigenous words. Even the name Canada comes from them, but it's not like we came and stole a country from them. There was no country when they came here. There was warring tribes fighting over land who were eager to partner with the Europeans in order to get a leg up on their rivals of other nations.
There'd be tribes that would exist if the French didn't help them survive. And it's interesting because even like the Iroquois came here from the United States in 1812. So they migrated here and they're like, we have right to this land, even though it's like you weren't even migrating over. You weren't traveling nomadically over here, right? And I was always, like I said, I was friends with natives and stuff like that. And I saw a lot of problems on the reserve. I live close to one of the Six Nation reserves, and I see the problems of what's going on. But the thing is, like, you can't play a victimhood forever. And you know, there was a cohesion, so to speak, of like Canadians and the Europeans, whatever, but Canadians that became Canadian and the native tribes way more than there was in the United States.
Yeah. And I'm frustrated by the whole conversation around relationships with the natives, whether it be around residential schools or the more current conversations about land rights and land acknowledgements and all these things. Like especially criticisms of residential schools, like it comes from this place of this like moral superiority, as if our current relationships with the First Nations people are good, which they aren't. Most reserves have third world conditions on them where they don't have fresh water, where rates of abuse and education levels like are like all the worst statistics you can imagine are going on in these reserves. And yet we kind of stick our nose up at the past as if their solutions are any worse than what we're doing now. So I think there needs to be some more nuance to that conversation. I don't have all the solutions. My priority is immigration reform, but I am frustrated watching these conversations and this kind of position of moral authority, superiority that goes around. When really there needs to be much more done to create a functional relationship between the Canadian people and First Nations peoples.
Something's got to be done because I think they've been conditioned also, and near Brantford and stuff, where one of the Six Nations, like it looks terrible, man, and their chiefs steal it. Like what was that guy's name? I don't remember right now, but one of the chiefs said, I knew people that knew him and has went to his parties. He's dead now. Kenny Hill, and he stole tons of the money in this, like with building mansions and stuff. It's like the same way the politicians do, right? They're stealing the money because they've been given billions of dollars. Like even I specifically know people that have been I knew a guy, his wife married an Indigenous man, and they ended up breaking up to whatever. And they had kids, and the kids got like 30 grand each just for being native. So like it's the same. I put it the same way of this idea of like stolen land, or this idea that, you know, land back. Well, then China should give the land back to the Mongolians, like or Europe should give it back to Romans. It's this endless like victimhood statement, and if we don't band together, like I had Adrian the realist on, he's a native guy, and we discussed Canadian nationalism, and he believes that we need to unify the white Canadians and the First Nations together, or like we're going to both lose our homes. And the thing is too, with this whole like land grab theft, the UN is using this to their advantage, because if the natives don't upkeep the land that they're going to supposedly take in BC, the UN gets it.
Yeah, I think we really need to unite along our kind of heritage. I think we need to come together, the French, the English, and the Indigenous peoples, and fight for our country, because right now it's being given away to invaders from all over the world, and it's being transformed into something else.
And they're using.
So I think we need Yeah. So I think we need to put our differences aside. I long for a reality where we can go back to squabbling between the English and the French. Right now we have bigger problems, and we need to put our differences aside and unite and work together to take back our homelands before we lose them forever. And I hope that through this we can through this grand collaboration we can form a more perfect partnership. Because I think for decades now, for almost a century, we've been going on the wrong path, and we need to find a way that we can more effectively work together in order to create a state that really represents the interests of the Canadian people.
And that's not what they've been doing, right? It's like they've been siphoning off money and stuff like that. And that's why like I'm part of like I can be kind of vindictive. That's why I like kind of dug my feet into like doing research about like who was here first, because this whole idea that like it's like native land, doesn't make sense. It's just a tool that they use, and the concept didn't even get brought up until the last like 20 to 40 years or something like that, right? It's just like this thing that they've really pushed, and it comes from communist ideologies, a lot of it. And if we don't, we unify and work together. Like I would rather see the reserves get better, because essentially their standard of living has stayed the same, but the money keeps pouring in, and now we find out that it's being siphoned off, right? So
they've created this sort of dependency trap where we spend something like $6 billion, $12 billion. I don't remember the exact figure, going towards reconciliation efforts and to support First Nations communities, and nothing gets better.
It was $30.5 billion in 2024. That's crazy.
And the wealth is getting squandered at the top, like you're saying, and all the while, these people use these land claims to prevent things like resource development. Canada has incredible wealth within the ground, especially around the Ring of Fire and stuff like this, but we can't develop it because there's these contentious kind of land claims. So we need to figure out a way that we can move projects forward and extract wealth and create an economy that works for everyone, and supports both, the Indigenous as well as white Canadians. Because we have everything in this country to be the most rich, wealthy people in the world. We should have the greatest standard of living of anyone on this planet, but we let these kind of weird political issues get in the way. So we need people to get in charge and to force things through and to do the right thing for our people. I'm not saying that they need to wipe them off the map or anything, but we can find mutually beneficial kind of pathways and projects to bring wealth to all the people of Canada.
And it's unfortunate because a lot of them, I think, like the chiefs and stuff like that, I do think that they are they might be representing a different agenda and not actually representing their people the same as the politicians do. So we have this on both sides where, the people on the ground, so to speak, that are like living on these reserves want better, and then they want more and more, but they don't realize that their own people are the ones stabbing them in the back, stealing from them and taking from what prosperity they could have, and then they go and blame the white man for things that are either over exaggerated or have been used for an agenda. Like we haven't released it yet, but I had what's his name, Jim the guy that's pushing against the residential schools.
McMurtry,
McMurtry. I've had him on the show recently. It's not out yet, but and I pushed back against some of the stuff he was even saying, about the multiculturalist society to some extent. And, that there is some things that they don't want to acknowledge, and they want to paint it in only one perspective and not look at the other side. Right. And that's why I get frustrated with these ideas of like, my family's been here for 421 years or whatever. And it's like, my family's been here. I'm as Canadian as anybody because of how long I have roots and heritage built into this nation. It's just sad that like, people don't see it that way. But like, what are your thoughts about like all the foreign interest and the fact that like, what is even the solution when our own intelligence agencies and RCMP have claimed that there hasn't been a legitimate election since maybe Mel Rudy, and how it's been compromised the entire time by foreign interests? Like, how do we rectify that?
Yeah, I mean, I think these are the inevitable kind of consequences of multiculturalism and mass immigration. We have significant populations, especially from countries like China and India, and these governments and other organizations are playing a significant role in our politics. It was just a month ago that like the Bishnoi gang out of India was labeled as a terrorist organization in Canada. The state is getting involved in like extrajudicial murders, like what happened with Nijar last summer. And then at the same time, we see the Chinese getting organized and influencing things in Canada through their kind of communist police stations, and even doing things like getting involved in Liberal Party nomination contests to select MPs that are loyal to the CCP, like Han Dong, who served as the Liberal MP for Don Valley West until the last election. After the controversy, he was forced to sit as an independent. But like, this is just the obvious results of bringing over people in large numbers. There are states around the world that are going to weaponize the people in our country that are still loyal to their homelands. And this is why we need to have a cohesive nation. We need to have very limited immigration. We need to send lots of people back that should never have come here in the first place, in order to protect the integrity of our politics. Like too much of politics has become about dressing up and trying to say a few words in certain languages and going to different temples of faith and celebrating different foreign religions and stuff like this, instead of actually talking about ideas and leading in ways that will make the country better for our people.
Yeah,
it's become about pandering in surface level things, because they realize that they can win ridings by kind of weaponizing different groups against each other. And like, this is not what our politics is supposed to be about. It's supposed to be ambitious. It's supposed to be about building up a great nation, and instead it's just about playing divide and conquer and winning over different groups. And it's disgusting, to be honest.
That's the whole tactic, though, right? If you can flood in a bunch of different people with different ethnicities, different backgrounds, languages, these ideas, their own ideologies, you constantly are pit people against each other while they're essentially just siphoning off wealth from the actual people who work hard. And then the sad fact is, right, a lot of the world has been conditioned to essentially brainwashed to believe that white people are bad, white man bad kind of thing, right? The idea of colonialism, I'm controversial, so I think colonialism was a good thing, because without it, we would not live in the modern world. All these people typing on cell phones that say this, I was like, you wouldn't have a cell phone if it wasn't for the Alexander Graham Bell and some of these people that created these innovations and technologies in colonized countries, right? And every country that decolonizes goes into chaos and warfare and death, and so it is interesting. You see this happening all the time, especially within Canada. And at least in the 80s and 90s, like when I grew up in the 90s, like people still assimilated, they were adapting. I still don't think there should be anything like Chinatown. I think that's ridiculous. All these kind of things of like, we need to embrace everybody else's culture in spite of our own. And then we have people that tell us we have no culture. And I haven't even released it yet, but I did a whole video covering Canadian culture and stuff like that, because that was my biggest, these things that I'm like, foreigners are coming into my country and trying to tell me who I am and what my ancestors did and how we're evil colonizers and this and that. And I do believe a lot of the people, if they realize it or not, are being brainwashed to hate us, and then they get flooded into our country. And it's unfortunate, too, that the conservatives will pander more than sometimes the liberals do, wearing turbans and the things that Pierre is doing. I think Pierre is one of the worst leaders to ever grace the Conservative Party. I think he is one of the worst. I think he is a parasite. I don't know why there's more Israeli flags at the Conservative headquarters. I think that they're bought and owned. And it's crazy because you have people that will just defend him to the death because they need some hope. But I'm like, you're not going to find any hope or resolution with him.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Conservatives need to bring forward a more alternative viewpoint to in terms of a worldview and a vision for this country. Really, conservatives, and this is true of most countries, Western countries around the world, they don't represent a different path. They represent like a slightly slowed down version of liberalism. It's just the blue liberals or the red liberals, really, at the end of the day.
Some people
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and in this day and age, there's very little left to conserve. I think we need a sort of more reform or revolutionary kind of perspective on things to restore what we've lost.
I agree.
So we need nationalists to step up and put our foot down and really define what it means to be Canadian and how we can work to preserve that. And really, the only way to do that is through remigration at this point. So I agree. I think Pierre is a pretty weak leader. I think he's been a pretty effective communicator. He's pretty savvy with social media, and he's used that to kind of jump to the forefront of the Conservative Party. But what does he really stand for? I'm not quite sure. He thinks things should be a bit more affordable, but I'm not quite sure how he wants to achieve that.
Do you think it's all political theater? Because I see the House of Commons, I think that whole thing is fake as hell. I think that they're just doing it to like appease people, to make them sell this idea that democracy is something that is real. But my point of democracy is the illusion of choice. And if it gets to the point where, yes, we are the minority and there is ethnic enclaves of other people, especially from India and stuff like that, and if they are controlling our political spectrum, as we've seen more and more of them are getting into the House of Commons, there will be no point of even, I don't think voting really like matters at the end of the day, unless we do change something. But like if both sides are representing the same self-destructive agenda, then it doesn't matter what little check mark you put on a piece of paper. At some point, like, it's either we fight and die for this country or we hand it over to foreigners and let our children be a persecuted minority.
Yeah, I do agree that the House of Commons is largely just theater. It's a slop show nowadays, and like a lot of people don't realize this, but like all the questions are submitted and vetted in advance. All the responses are pre-orchestrated. I think there could be ways to like, I mean, if you just got rid of these practices and actually had serious people who are able to discuss ideas and policies and so on and debate them rigorously in the House, that might be more interesting to watch, and it might force politicians to be a little bit more serious. But at the end of the day, this is not what they select for. They have people that can take pre-vetted questions from the leadership of the party and read them out and read their responses off little pieces of paper. Like, what's the point of this? They just use it to get clips and stuff for social media that they think will pop off, and they don't, because they're boring. There's very little utility, I think, to the House of Commons nowadays. And yeah, I think it comes back to I agree. I didn't vote in the last election. I spoiled my ballot because I don't see parties offering a very different alternative or worldview. I think they're all different kind of varying degrees of liberalism. Maybe they have slightly different ideas on tax plans and so on. But none of them are really offering a different worldview in terms of a counter to the kind of neoliberal internationalist identity. And I think that's really what's failed Canada for a long time now. And it isn't just like the last 10, 20 years. Like this goes back right to the kind of post-war consensus around this kind of liberal egalitarian kind of worldview that I think has done Canada really wrong. I think it's resulted us in becoming a kind of vassal state of the US. It's resulted us in adopting this kind of liberal attitude on the economy and on morality that I think is outside of Canadian identity. Like this nation was really founded as a rejection of American ideas and American liberalism, and in the post-war period we've become completely ensconced in it. So people say they don't understand Canadian culture, they don't understand why we're not America and so on. And at this point, I think that is a valid point. We've been totally subsumed by American. I don't know about that. I might put it communitarian. I do value Canada's kind of collectivist inklings, but I think they've been kind of weaponized against a lot of people of my worldview for a long time. But I think we don't don't think we win by labeling people communists and saying that we need to be more liberal or more American. I think we win by steering into the swerve and understanding that Canadians are by nature collectivist, are communitarian, and we do value things like peace, order, and good governance. We do understand that there needs to be a role for government. We need leaders that are willing to not cut down the size of the state, but willing to wield the state in order of the interest of our own people. This ties into a conversation that's been going on in social media that I find rather frustrating, and it's this whole in reaction to the floor crossing of Chris D'Entremont in the last few days from the Conservatives to the Liberals. There's been this whole discussion about red Toryism.
Interchange them.
Yeah, and he's been labeled as a red Tory, and this really frustrates me personally. This is a real pet peeve of mine, and it's kind of nerdy. It's kind of insider baseball, but red Toryism is constantly kind of used as a moniker in the modern context to describe someone who's like fiscally conservative but socially liberal. And that's really the reverse of what it is. Like, I think a more accurate way of putting that would be these people are blue liberals. They're socially liberal, but they're fiscally conservative. Red Toryism is really a unique Canadian ideology that is what formed this country. It's the ideology of Robert Borden and Sir John A. Macdonald. It's the belief that we need a state to preserve peace, order, and good governance. It's a socially conservative position that believes in a large state. It's if anything, it's economically progressive while socially conservative. And I think that's the kind of identity that nationalists need to adopt and restore if we're going to get Canada back on the right track.
I agree. And like what I mean, what the communist thing is that I do see us going that direction essentially, because I've studied communism for a while now. And I do feel like if we don't get our stuff together, we'll be the Bolshevik Revolution. We'll be like Mao. It will get that bad where you will have these essentially like a revolutionary war and pitting people against each other, and then essentially they'll mass slaughter people. Like, this is stuff that has happened time and time again throughout history, and if people don't wake up to the fact that they're using all of these ethnic differences between us when they bring people into their country, like, they're in America, there could be a civil war soon, and that's my concern. Like, I just had a baby. My baby's like 5 months old, and I don't want her to have to live through some sort of Bolshevik revolution hellhole. And that's what is concerning to me, because like essentially they're bringing in tons and tons of people who hate us, who have been weaponized against us, who only want to benefit their own people, think that we're the villains. So they need to, their entitlement, and the people call them the give me grants or whatever. All these people are coming in, like, give me all of this stuff because I was persecuted by the white man in my country or whatever it may be. And that's like, if Canadians don't realize how far it could go, a lot of people I feel like are still in this fantasy world that it can't get that bad because this is Canada, and we've never faced something like that, but we have in the past. There has been a lot of conflicts and stuff like that, and you know, and it is a concerning thing that the government will enact all of these policies essentially to strip away our rights. So what do you think about like the direction we're headed? If we don't change anything, yeah, there could be people going to jail on mass scale, like in the UK, for just talking about like, hey, I don't want my daughter assaulted by some sort of foreign immigrant, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think speech laws in the UK are still a lot worse than here in Canada. They are looking to introduce some new regulations that could seem people blocked from using the internet and stuff like this, which is somewhat disturbing. So I have concern for the direction that things are going in, but I don't like to black bill. I don't like to get super paranoid about these things. Like, the reality is we're never going to win unless we speak passionately about our ideas with conviction and clarity. I don't think anything that I say is hateful. I don't think it's hate speech. Everything that motivates me comes from a position of love for my own people and for our identity.
It's about love, right?
Yeah, I just want to be able to pass on the country I was born into onto my children and grandchildren, and I see that slipping away very quickly.
Mhm.
But I don't think it's beyond salvaging. This country was transformed very quickly in the span of a decade or two, and I
Yeah.
think it can be saved just as quickly as if not faster. Um, we just need to have and like everything can be done within the legislative framework that currently exists.
Just out of
Um,
curiosity, right? Because I know you're doing things in the more political realm, right? What do you think about someone like Jeremy McKenzie and the Second Sons? Do you think that is necessary? I do, but I'm just saying, like, do you think that that's the direction that we should go? Is trying to make a movement of collectivizing Canadian men together to learn skills that are necessary to fight if necessary, or this idea of to do these little like these things to impose our ideas in a very open, broad manner that makes people watch the video or see what's going on in public, to kind of maybe make them think that, yeah, there is a lot of people out there that are starting to want to see a shift and change.
I think it's important for Canadian nationalists to get organized. I think it's important to build communities and to build relationships.
I agree.
One of the fundamental problems of why we see our country slipping away is Canadians have become so atomized, especially
Yeah.
through the decline of faith. There aren't these community groups really that exist, whereas foreigners maintain these community groups around their. It might be ethnic groups, it might be community groups, it's often faith groups. So as a result, Canadian politicians are kind of forced. There's this whole incentive structure where they can pander to different groups that are localized in certain ridings. That's how our election system works, right? So if you can just go to this temple and you can win over hundreds or thousands of votes, like there's a huge incentive to go on and put on a headdress and take off your shoes and do whatever you can to win over their vote. Whereas Canadians don't have these same kind of community structures, so there isn't that same kind of incentive to pander to them. And I think if
Lost our Christianity and
Canadians,
stuff.
I think if heritage Canadians can rebuild these ties, whether it be through a group like mine or other groups that are founding, I think this is a positive development and will put pressure on politicians to be better. I obviously I don't agree with their approach entirely, or else I'd just be a part of their organization instead of starting my own. But I think encouraging people to engage in community building and physical fitness, I think these are great things that are much more productive than scrolling and blackpilling. And so on. Yeah, exactly. Jerking off and watching porn. Like, I think there's so many more destructive forces in our lives. So I do admire any Canadian nationalists, regardless of the group that they're getting involved in, becoming more politically active. But I do think there is a lot of value to our approach. I want to put forward Canadian nationalism in a way that's palatable to a large community.
Because people see that and they think extreme, right? So they don't want to like necessarily go that direction. And I do
be off-putting to a lot of people. And I want to put forward a kind of professional face that people are comfortable with.
Yeah.
And put forward a message that people can resonate with.
You see, I think some like conservative old lady would maybe see some of the activism, so to speak, that maybe the Second Sons does and be like, and think these things, because everyone's been kind of conditioned. I've seen this with like people in my own family and stuff like that, right? They you need to accept everybody type of thing, right? But if you're going to accept everybody in spite of your own people, and we've lost this like religious connection. I'm not religious, right? But I lean towards Christianity. I have a lot of Christian friends, but that's what was our way of community. And I'm starting. We dive into all sorts of crazy stuff on the show. Right, I'm gonna have some guy on to talk about the Nephilim being connected to clowns and stuff. So like, there's gonna be some weird stuff on the show. But I just love like different strange topics and inquiring and just thinking outside of the box. And there's a lot of points of like that Christianity, Catholicism, whatever the Protestant, the foundations of this nation that were built by white Christians and Protestants and Catholics. There was that sense of community. You know, even my dad's not religious, but he started going to church because he thinks it's good for my stepbrother's like kid to kind of like grow up in and stuff like that. And he was like, you would like it. It's a lot of white people. And I was like, he's like, that's how they collectivize, right? And I think that we've lost that. So I do think that groups like yours and creating what you are is like I applaud you for it. I think it's like a good thing. And this is how we can bring together people that are Canadian that maybe don't want to go to church and are not religious, but still want to conserve their identity and preserve their way of life. You know, I do think that it is necessary, especially at this point. And because I work with a lot of young kids, a lot of them are starting to notice what the hell is going on, and they are not happy about it.
Yeah. So I think that's important. Like, I don't think we need one monolithic organization. I think we need to really develop the national space in a lot of different ways. And I think, like groups like mine, groups like many other active clubs and stuff like this, I think they're all positive developments in the broader nationalist movement. And I think we still need more. I think we need. I think we could really use a large media organization. I think that would be a really positive development. I don't like even some of these other larger alt media things like Rebel and Juno and stuff. I don't think they're real nationalists. Yeah, I think a lot of them are kind of fundamentally liberal, or they're just so focused on outrage bait and stuff like this instead of really elevating.
Too, right?
And, yeah, exactly. And I mean, most of them haven't been willing to offer me any sort of platform, even despite. Like I think I have a, maybe it's a bit controversial, but I don't think I have any sort of hateful message or anything that should get me barred from these platforms. So I think we could really use a strong nationalist media organization. I think we need to take inspiration from what the foreigners are doing. We need to take inspiration from what the left is doing and really build out the nationalist space into all sorts of professionalized organizations that can push our worldview to multiple different communities. Different groups are going to appeal to different folks in different ways and can add to the system and complement each other.
Yeah, and I think that's a way of the way they gaslight, especially like white people, right? The word racist and stuff. We're like talking about these who coined what and all that stuff, right? Like, and that not necessarily Pierre Elliott Trudeau coined multiculturalism, but he did popularize it, right? It's the same way like Leon Trotsky popularized the word racist to beat dissidents of the communist agenda. So it's like they use these terms and isms. Everything was built on an ism: feminism, communism, transgenderism, multiculturalism, nationalism, right? So, and all these isms are either used for or against us, right? And that's what the funny thing is. It's like, when you, I think Indians are a huge problem in Canada. Even though I work with one guy and he's very nice, and he just went back to India for a month, and he's but at the same time, I've told him the things I think, and he brought me home a little Buddha statue, and I thanked him for it or whatever. But like at the same time, I've told him like he was going to like an arranged marriage or whatever like that in Canada. I'm going to a party for it, and I was like, that's not what we do here. And I was like, do you see why like people are pushing back? It's because you guys are not assimilating or trying to even kind of become us. You are just importing your culture that you have an entire subcontinent that you can call home, right? And Canadian identity is very distinct. It might be European centric in the way that it was the French, English, Irish, and Scottish that kind of came together and founded and created this nation at the end of the day. But like, if I go to Ireland to see my homeboy, like I'm not gonna like, even though I might have some Irish ancestry, I'm not gonna become Irish. Because this is my home and this is what my ancestors built, right? So I do think that there is a huge problem with these different these ethnic enclaves. Now you have Muslims, and now we're seeing what's happening in New York. They like literally elected a communist Muslim. Like it's only going to get worse if people kind of don't collectivize. And I think that someone like you is needed. Especially your age and how young you are. I'm a little more controversial. I don't care. I will say what needs to be said. I will call out things that are need to be said. And I never wanted to create a essentially like a political movement. A lot of people, I've had probably thousands upon thousands of comments that have told me to run for prime minister, and I like reptilian for prime minister. And I'm like, you don't want, they would literally I would be kicked out. They would not because even they'd watch like 5 of my videos and not want anything to do with me. And it's because my message, whatever they try to spite, it's like people label as like hateful, but I don't hate anybody. I grew up with and one of my aunts just actually was Jamaican. Like I've grew up with tons of different people in my life, right? And it's just because I'm like, oh, I like the way of life that my grandparents gave for me and stuff like that, and I want to preserve it. Doesn't mean I hate other people, but the thing is, if I want to experience Japanese culture, Indian culture, whatever it might, I'll go there to experience it. I don't need to experience it in my own backyard, you know?
Yeah, no, I believe in diversity. I just don't want every single country to be merged into the same kind of beige multiculturalist soup. Like I want Japan to remain Japanese, I want the Netherlands to remain Dutch, I want Germany to remain Germany, and I want Canada to remain Canada. Yeah. And it's easy, like there's a lot of things being thrown around, the rise of anti-Indian hate, but like the reality is they've brought over a lot of Indians. Like just look at the stats. They're by far the leading country when it comes to immigration,
and they hate us.
This is causing issues, right? They all go into the same kind of enclaves. They congregate in a few cities, and they transform them into different places. Not to mention, they take over all sorts of different industries, be it chain restaurants or the trucking industry.
Where they're killing people,
and it causes all sorts of different problems. Like there was just a story the other day about two Indians, who are Indian immigrants who had been here for a long time, but they clearly had not assimilated into Canadian culture because they've been put on house arrest. They should have had their citizenships revoked and they should have been deported because they were running a scheme where they're bringing over more people from India and giving them trucking licenses without the proper training and accreditation. And like this only causes more problems. But the judges give them a slap on the wrist. They don't even put them in jail. They're on house arrest. The 50 plus trucking licenses they'd given out over the last decade were not revoked. The courts interviewed these students and they say, oh, don't worry, we were satisfied with the training. Well, of course, like obviously you've paid these guys under the table to receive a trucking license on an expedited fashion in order to get things like permanent residency faster because you can have a record of employment. Like this is all a large scheme, and instead of properly cracking down on these things, the government is not to jeopardize people's immigration status, and they're giving them these soft sentences and slaps on the wrist.
That's a betrayal. It's treason. You should be hung for that shit. I do, but like at the same time, like the politicians that are pandering to foreign people that end up killing actual Canadians, there used to be a punishment for that. And actually, I was going to bring that up earlier. I don't know how much time you have, but essentially, like there is no accountability. And I've said this for years, right? And the thing is, when I started speaking out, especially, you know, like TikTok became a big platform. I would have all the accounts I've had, I've been banned multiple times. I probably have like 200,000 people following me because I've had massive accounts, you know, 50, 40K. And, you know, I always get banned. But at first I would always talk about like politics and like this idea of the government and how they're parasitic to some extent. And my biggest point was always there is no accountability. If we have no accountability for these people that control our country and they can do whatever they want, they can steal money, like whatever her name is, McKenna, that took all that money, like billions of dollars they lost, all of this stuff. Like if this is any other country, like if you were in China and you did that, you'd probably be put to death. Like the thing is, these people are stealing our money. They're killing their own citizens, especially with things like MAID and all these other programs. And it's sickening. And the fact that like, I don't understand where we go from here at the end of the day, because like if politicians aren't held accountable, they're going to keep doing the same thing over and over again to enrich themselves off of our back while they play pretend. And then at the end of the day, actual Canadians suffer and get hurt. And now are more living on the streets. There's more being addicted to drugs because it's hopeless. And it's not meaning to blackpill people, but at the end of the day, like if we do not figure out a way to hold politicians accountable for their actions, like I did a video that went viral. I was just sitting in my car or whatever, just talking about how Trudeau should have been like, how did he walked away laughing his ass off with all the money that he stole from us? No accountability, no nothing, no punishment from all the lives that he affected, detrimental harm that he did on people. It's like, how do we have a political system where they're just like handing everything to foreign people and while they kill us? It's just, I don't know where we go from there.
Yeah, but again, I think it comes down to this: the liberalization, the atomization of society. We're not organized, so they can take advantage of us, and there's no consequences.
Yeah, 100%.
So we need to be more organized, and we need to put direct pressure on these politicians and make sure that they can't continue to succeed if they're just going to take us for granted and jerk us around and call us racist and get away with corruption and stuff. No, we need to put our foot down and demand better from our politicians, or they're going to lose our support. So I like to try and stay focused on solutions and moving forward.
Because that could happen. What if it gets to that point? Like, what if it gets to the point where like Canadians are the minority in their own country? Because
we're certainly heading in that direction. But even we're probably going to be the minority in this country by 2035. But even if that happens, we'll still be the most significant minority. Like, we still need to get organized. We can still win political power within our system without being a supermajority in this country. But I do think we'll have to organize and coordinate in order to be able to do that. And once we are able to win power, we need to do everything in our power to make sure that Canada is again a majority Canadian country and forever will be.
Yeah. But to end this on, tell the people like kind of what your platform is proposing, because I know you guys have structure and stuff like that. I'd like to get Greg Wycliffe on the show at some point. I like he's got a great sense of humor, like in the way that he does things. I've always kind of liked that because I saw him during the Convoy era, and like, you know, he was someone that I was like, you're kind of like me, you think like me, or whatever. This is how we kind of band together, right? But just to kind of give people, I know I'm a little more extreme, but like to give people like an element of an idea and an element of what you're kind of doing, what you're proposing, at least in the short form. Like, I know it's all on your website, but just to kind of give people, because I know, you know, our audience is primarily in the States. Like, we get a lot of people listening from the States, you know, and they're interested in what's going on in Canada, but we're growing even more now in Canada and across the UK. And so to kind of get your ideas out there for some of these countries, you know, even places like Japan are starting to shift, and we get like lots of downloads from there too. So it's like, you know, to give people an idea of what you're kind of doing and why you're doing it, just to maybe help others too that are maybe in different countries that maybe could come to the same conclusion, maybe, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Dominion Society is what we call a vanguard metapolitical movement. We're not a political party. We don't run in elections, but we're coordinating a voting bloc of like-minded Canadians in order to put pressure on existing governments, institutions, political parties, in order to influence the culture and push everyone towards our direction. So we advocate for two core ideas: Canadian nationalism, which we've talked a lot about today, but also our core concept is remigration. So this is kind of an avant-garde concept coming out of Europe and becoming increasingly popular and mainstream amongst European parties in a number of different countries. And we're looking to bring this concept to Canada and make it a normal idea. We want people to hear this word, understand what it means, and then feel confident saying it. And we've kind of put forward a clear, concise remigration plan that we think would save the Canadian nation from disappearing forever. So you can find it on our website, dominionsociety.ca. It's a very simple website. It's only a few pages. And it kind of breaks down the mass immigration crisis in Canada, as well as providing solutions that we think would rectify the situation. So we have a 3-phase, 10-point plan that attacks all the major issues with immigration in Canada. We put forward ideas like a total moratorium on immigration. So we kind of, it's broken down into 3 phases. The first one is kind of shut the door and incentivize settlement. So eliminate a lot of the pull factors that people are coming here to take advantage of our social systems and stuff like this, while also making an environment that's a little bit less hospitable for immigrants, to encourage them to go back home. Phase 2 is to remove what we call the illegitimate population, and phase 3 is to rebuild a cohesive and sovereign nation. So phase 1 is kind of broken down into 4 main policies, and that's an immigration moratorium, so stopping all ongoing immigration, permanent residents, temporary foreign workers, all of it. put it on pause for 5 to 10 years while the kind of situation stabilizes. We want to abolish the temporary foreign worker program.
Yeah, it's terrible.
We want to restrict birthright citizenship. Right now, Canada has some of the most liberal birthright citizenship rules in the world. Kids born to illegals, tourists, temporary foreign workers, all automatically get citizenship, and then they can be used as an anchor baby to cause a bunch of chain migration and bring over family members. So we think this needs to be abolished entirely. You must have at least one Canadian parent in order to get Canadian citizenship. It's pretty common around the world. And then the fourth policy is just a basket of policies to, as I said, make Canada less hospitable to immigrants. This is things like abolishing access to social services for non-citizens, enforcing Quebec-style kind of language laws in terms of public signage and stuff like this. It should all be in English or French. It shouldn't be in Hindi and Mandarin and all these things. Banning dual citizenship, banning kind of kosher and halal slaughter, these kind of anti-Canadian ideas. So just making it so that people aren't coming here to just take advantage of our social supports and taking all the ways that they're able to live as kind of foreigners amongst us.
That's what's crazy. It is crazy that it's like that they don't incentivize Canadians to have kids. The amount, I always bring this up, like the amount of money that they could put into incentivizing Canadians to have kids and building up our population. People don't like this, but doing what Hungary did, which took inspiration from what Germany did in the 1930s, was the idea of like, okay, you have one kid, you get your loan cut in a quarter. You have two kids, your loan cut in half. You have 4 kids, you don't have to pay for your house. You give people so they can build up the economy, build up their population. There is ways to do this. White people are now the worldwide minority, less than 7% of us. And, I do think some of these things are being done on purpose to us. And a lot of people don't want to admit or talk about this stuff. But, to end this on to a little bit, because it's almost Remembrance Day. And I feel like at least to get your thought on this, of the stamp of the Sikhs, 10 Sikhs fought in World War I and 0 in World War II. So what do you think about this erasure of our history and uplifting some foreigner that had nothing to do with Canada?
Yeah, I think it's really despicable, especially on Remembrance Day of all things. There are so many fascinating and amazing Canadian heroes that served in the world wars and wars subsequently, and I think we should do more to lionize and create awareness around actual Canadians that served bravely. We'll be putting out a lot of content over the next week to raise awareness of different historical war heroes that I think we deserve a lot more attention. I think someone like Arthur Currie would be a lot more appropriate to have on a stamp than some random nameless Sikh person. I think it's absolutely inappropriate. We should be proud of our own identity and our own people, not just trying to make Canada more welcoming to foreigners.
I know. I'm trying to calculate a little more because I've been pissed in some of my videos, and I'm like trying to be a little to calculate in the way that I do things and stuff like that, because like it just instantly I just wanted to like yell about it because it's so disrespectful. Like 10 Sikhs fought in World War I, 10 that represented Canada. And then in World War II, they don't even know the number. It's probably 0 because it was very strict and stuff like that. And I did a video because one of the things that Indians like to do is we fought for the British Empire, especially like Sikhs did. And it was 0.2%. It was like a fraction of a fraction that actually fought compared to the European might that in my opinion, was used to, I think World War I and II was used to essentially destroy Europe, and there's other reasons, give Jews Israel and stuff like that, but like it wasn't the war that they sold people that it was, and it is the most disrespectful thing. All of those men are rolling in their graves, all of our ancestors that fought and died for the country. They would look at places like Brampton and be sick to their stomach, and they would have never fought in the first place. They would have fought for Canada and stayed here and tried to push against these policies and these politicians that did this to this country. I think
there was Sikhs that fought in World War I, but they can have a stamp in Punjab.
I know.
See, you don't need to have a stamp in Canada. Canadians fought here. for Canada, for freedom, regardless of what you think about the wars. They fought for crown and country, and we should respect their sacrifice and the risks that they took to fight on behalf of their country, which is what they did.
Yeah, they risked all of that and fought and died and sacrificed so much for the future generations of their own people, not for some like Sikh or Hindu or any other Chinese, nobody else. Like they did it for their own people to preserve their culture, because they believed that if they didn't do that, we all be speaking German. But you're going to be speaking Punjabi soon if people don't do anything about it. It's true.
And Canadians at the time were very anti-immigration. And it's not even like anti-third world immigration, although they were anti-third world immigration. They were anti-immigration from Europe in general. There was a very isolationist kind of attitude amongst Canadians pre and post World War I and II. So certainly they would not like to see what Canada has become. They were fighting as proud members of the empire. And to see how that's fallen apart, I think would be shocking and disappointing for them.
It's crazy. All those men that fought and died for their country to be handed over to Muslims is the crazy.
No, we're going to take back Canada from the foreigners, and then we're going to go and we'll help take back the UK and Australia and really make the whole empire great again.
We got to bring my buddy. It's funny because he's Irish. He hates the British because of what they did to their people and stuff like that. But like, because he's not North, they fought, right, the RA and stuff. But it is funny, like, to end this on, I just wanted to mention like that the Canadian, a lot of people don't even know Canadians didn't want the flag change. It was forced upon us. Like I have the red outside on to replace it again because this tree keeps fucking cutting it up. But I have this flagpole in the back, and I always raise it up, and I'm almost want to get a bigger one, but there's this tree that as soon as the weather's bad, it's like in it. So I'm like, it's so high up, I'm gonna have to like try to like trim it or some shit. But it is it's something I embraced and even try to push on other people to be like, you need to embrace this. Even like there's a guy at work that's like 37, 38. He does not like what's going on, and he even is like, I want to get that flag. Like, I have a sticker on the back of my car that's the red end sign. So I'm like, it is funny that now even the younger kids, I'm trying to impose this on them of like, this was the real Canadian flag. And like I said, my approach is a little different. I had a video go viral. I said, fuck this flag. And it was the Canadian flag. And then I was like, this is the real flag. And it essentially was to like how you captivate people through, I would say, more of an intellectual, political way, where I like to enrage people in a second and then explain why I'm saying these things, right? To like make them think about what I'm actually saying, right? You got to hook people in. And I appreciate you coming on. I've wanted to talk to you for a while. We do align a lot in the way that we think and stuff like that. And I would love, I'm meaning to join the Dominion Society. I was going to do it last month with the kid and everything. It gets crazy, right? But I'm going to join, and I want the pin and all that stuff. And
you gotta sign up and get your nice Dominion Society pin. We'll send you a card. I'll send you a nice letter. I'll sign it myself.
Awesome.
So if you're a like-minded Canadian, if you're a nationalist, we need you to get involved. We need you to head over to dominionsociety.ca, check out our ideas, learn more a bit about the org, and look to sign up as a member. It's $25 a year. We send you a nice pin and a nice card, and we look to get people involved and get involved in the political process.
Too. That's like and it makes sense because we need to really push towards this. And I appreciate you coming on. Obviously tell people where to find you and all that stuff. And I think that this is detrimental that we have to do this and collectivize and come together, or I don't know what this country is going to look like for my kids when they're my age, especially even just younger. So, I want to push people, especially if you listen and you're in Canada, to embrace nationalism and understand that if we do not preserve our way of life, we will lose it forever. And I do believe in this concept, not even concept, this truth of the fact that, yes, our children will be a persecuted minority in their own country. It's happening in UK. It's happening in Ireland and places like that, all over Europe. If we don't put our foot down now, we will become just like them. And there will be the crime stabbings even worse than they are now.
Yeah. You can find us on all social media platforms: Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok. You can find us at Dominion Soc, SOC. We're posting there every day. If you want to follow me personally, I mostly post on Twitter. You can find me. It's my full name, at Daniel Tyrie. So yeah, do follow along. Do check out our website. Become a member if you're interested. We're looking to keep Canada.
Yeah, and people will see this too. Like, I never share my Instagram on the show because we have Strange Brew Podcast, which people know. Go follow stuff on Strange Brew Podcast. But also the people I'm sure are aware now, but the Reptilian, and I repost a lot of the Dominion Society stuff. I share it in stories, so you guys will obviously see this stuff. So obviously go follow them. And this is how we do it: is branch off and kind of collectively come together and share each other's messages. You know, we're not all going to agree on everything or the way everyone does the thing, the way that they do it or whatever. But this is about collectivizing people who really do care about this country and want to preserve it. And I do advocate for other countries to attempt to do this in Europe and stuff like that. So we have to try to change something. The first thing to do is talk about it, expose what's going on. And then the next thing is to actually make like the physical steps to actually change and push these ideas out there for people to latch on to, and then hopefully move forward in a unified thing, right? That, you know, yeah, everyone remembers that thing from ants, right? You know, he's like, you know, it's just one ant, but if they all come together, you know, it's over, right?
Apes together strong.
yeah. That's funny. I actually love those movies. Awesome. Okay, let's thank you everybody. Support the show, support the Dominion Society, and yeah, until next time, stay strange, everybody.